Welcome to another advanced Plotagraph tutorial. Today's image is from Stoptheroc. You can find him on Instagram and online. I'll put links in the description below. So let's get started. When I look at this image, the first thing that comes to mind is I want all this cool pattern of this brick archways to just come at me like a moving walkway or something. I'm going to start off by zooming really far in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll over and I'm going to start animating this image. So I'm going to go to my animation points, go to add animation points, or V for shortcut. And I'm going to click on this dark corner where the brick meets the shadow here. And I'm going to drag it to this next spot where the brick meets the shadow again. Now it starts out small, but I'm going to start in the exact same spot and connect that to the next one. And so on and so forth down the line. Right in the corner where the brick meets the shadow. I'm going to make sure it hits the beginning of where the brick meets the shadow as opposed to the outside here. And we'll keep this consistent throughout the image. I'll go ahead and speed this up so you guys don't have to watch me do this real slow. So now that I'm getting closer to the end of the image, now you can see why it's important that I start at the beginning where the light and the shadow and the brick all meet. And not guess and be somewhere in between. It's good to be exact when trying to do this kind of animation. Okay, now I'm at the end of the image here. I'm going to zoom all the way back out. I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and I'm going to see what this looks like just to start. Okay, so now that my preview is playing, you can see these lines at the bottom are smoothly and seamlessly going into one another. I'll follow with my mouse there, and you can literally just follow this pillar all the way out to the edge of the image. So I'm going to go ahead and use this exact same technique on the left corner, going all the way out. On the top left corner, going from this first dark spot, and I'll come all the way out to the top here on the top left, and I'll do the same on the top right corner. I'm going to speed it up in post. Alright, I've got all four of my corners set. I'm going to go ahead and hit preview. Okay, so you can see that my pillars are looking pretty good coming all the way out until about the last 4 or 5 pillars or so. The floor is looking great. Everything's moving seamlessly together all the way out. The corners are looking a little bit weird. So in order to fix these pillars, you kind of have to understand why they're not looking good. So I'm going to go down to the bottom left and I'll hit the settings icon and I'll turn on the preview tracks right here. And I'll go ahead and hit preview one more time. So the preview tracks show you how the animation is working and how it's moving everything that it's moving in the image. So here are all my points moving along. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to add a couple more points here in the center to help offset these lines that are pulling at the middle of my pillars here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another line of animation points like I did down here, except I'm going to add it in the middle going out from here on the right hand side and in the middle going out from here on the left hand side. However, I don't have these nice corner spots where it makes it really easy to be able to tell where I'm supposed to place my points. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to draw an animation line and I'm going to use it as a guide. I'm going to move it just like the angle of the perspective of the image here. I'm going to do it on the left hand side as well. Okay, those are looking pretty good as guidelines. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in to 900%. And I'm just going to draw animation points just like I did before. One after another. In the same exact spot as the last one and connect them. I'm going to go off the page just a little bit. I'm going to delete that guideline, zoom over to the other side. Delete that guideline, zoom all the way out. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so after previewing the image with these added lines here in the middle, everything's moving nice and seamlessly all the way to the edge here. You'll notice my very last pillar is still having a little bit, you see how it's pulling in the center and it's kind of tilting off a little bit? Same with on the left hand side here. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get away with adding just a couple more points. I'm going to add another guideline here, and I'm just going to do 3 or 4 points, not the whole entire thing. And I'm also going to add a couple lines on the bottom here, because I noticed that the bottom was getting kind of squished. Now you'll notice that they're nice and parallel with the plane that I've got built here. So I'm going to delete this guideline. Okay, that looks really good there on the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over on the right hand side, and then up above on the upper left and on the upper right hand side as well. Now the pillar looks smoother at the edge here, but this top corner is super wacky. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a point going off the page. I'm going to add a point going off the page here. See what happens. Awesome, this is looking pretty darn perfect. The only last little detail is the little white pulling part here on the top and the bottom of the image. It's pulling the image off the page and it doesn't have any more photo to work with. So what you're going to have to do in this case is you're just going to have to hit the crop tool, bring it in. I'm going to bring it in from one pillar. This really doesn't change the image that much on this one. Just pull it in a little bit. So everything's looking really good here, except I haven't done any masking yet. It almost looks like I don't need to, but you see her getting kind of blurry and the edges getting kind of blurry up in here. So I'm going to zoom in and mask this lady out to start. And then I'm going to also mask out this dark pillar because I think it would probably look pretty weird moving. Wouldn't be very consistent with the rest of the image, so I'm going to mask that out. Same with where this pillar gets light here. There's not really much detail in the bricks, so I'm going to mask this whole section out. The only thing I'm going to leave here is I'll leave the floor up until this white area, and then I'll leave this group of pillars on the left, right, and then this group on the top. And I'm just going to speed through this in post so you guys don't have to watch the whole process. So now I have the areas masked out that I want. And I want these pillars here to move similarly to these ones, but I'm already zoomed in at 900%, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to get that detailed like I did here. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go ahead and draw a couple lines. Let's say like 5 or 6 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to do the same thing on the top left corner, the bottom right corner, and the bottom left corner, and I'll speed through it in post. So now I'm ready to export it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go down to the bottom right and I'll hit the export image button. I'm going to hit custom export. Now I'm going to put this on Instagram, and if you do an image too big, Instagram will compress it and it won't really look that good. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in on the height, since it's a vertical image, 1080. I'm going to drag it up to 4 seconds because 3 seconds is the minimum for both Facebook and Instagram. And I'm going to hit export. Now that that's scheduled, I'm going to go to my exports and I'm going to scroll on down. Now that that's ready, I'm going to go ahead and hit download it to my desktop. So now I've got my final image pulled up and it looks really good, really cool animation, really smooth, seamless lines, and overall just a really awesome effect. So hopefully you learned some cool new tricks and tips about how to use Plotagraph. So thanks for watching, and keep your eye out for more tutorials coming up.